This is the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast with Mike Riley and Mike Ferrante. I'm your engineer, Amari. Today we discuss the advantages of having a real estate agent instead of just playing real estate mogul yourself on Zillow or realty.com. We talk about how much harder it is to find good deals on houses in a hot market. We also discuss cash deals versus financing, watching for the intangibles of an offer, and much more. Stay tuned.
All right. Hello, everybody from steamy Cleveland Heights, Ohio, where it's close to 90 degrees, the dew point at 70. We just got our 4 o'clock thunderstorm. With me is my sidekick in the realty business, Mike Ferrante. Mike, you're in your air-conditioned bunker?
Fortunately, I am. I just got out of the sauna that they call Northeast Ohio a few minutes ago.
I don't know how anybody goes to Disney World in the summertime and gets those 4 o'clock thunderstorms. Wait in line for an hour, kids crying, your sweat's pouring off you, and then you're going to go into an air-conditioned Space Mountain ride. That to me it does not sound like fun, but a lot of people do it. So
yeah, you got to love Mickey Mouse to do that.
Yeah, well, my kids, we would take our kids down January 2nd, January 3rd every year for about 5-6 years. And it was always great because I would work through the holidays, getting, work lined up for January. And then crews would start filtering back around the 5th of January. And I'd just say, let's go down to Disney World. And prices were good. Crowds were on the low side. And it was still decorated with Christmas stuff. So, yeah, it was great. In fact, I remember, just quick side story, folks. I remember we flew January 1st, 2000, and the plane was half full. And it was like early afternoon on our way to Orlando from Cleveland. And people were afraid to get on planes because they thought somehow they're going to fall out of the sky from the Y2K. So, and I thought, well, they're going to fall out of the sky. They'll probably fall out, in Australia when it turns 2000, but didn't happen. So,
yeah,
anyway.
that was a bizarre time. I remember everyone preparing for that, and it was a big bunch of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of big bunch of nothing, let's talk about how much of a nothing burger. Where is the value in all you real estate wannabe moguls out there who are going online looking at properties on Zillow, the MLS, realty.com, whatever. Speak to that subject, Mike, as an official credentialed realtor, talking to the unwashed amateur investors out there.
Well, and now I can even say broker. I've been an actual broker now for over a year. I'm they call it an associate broker at my office. So I even have the higher credential. So, and again, I'm going to answer this question not in a self-serving manner. I mean, because the obvious answer is to say, oh, forget about those websites and just talk to me or one of my teammates, and we'll set you up a search that comes directly from the MLS. That's the self-serving answer. And there is some truth to that. But here's what I'll say about those third-party websites. I think that they have value. The value that they have is that it's an easy way for people to get started in their home searches, whether it's for investment properties, their primary residence, whatever it is. But eventually, most people end up working with someone who has direct access to the source of that information, the multiple listing service, or MLS, as you've heard it called. So the other thing about it is that the tools that we have in our search engine far exceed anything that Realtor.com, Zillow, than those guys have. So again, valuable, but most people end up working with an agent who has access to even better tools. Think of it like.
So what are those better tools, Mike?
Well, so the way we can search, for example, some of the websites have several fields you can search by, maybe even a dozen fields you can search by. I've got hundreds of fields I can search by. So I can search by lot size, by square footage, by total square footage, including basements, garage, whether it's attached or not, master bedroom on the first floor, short sales, not short sales. I could go on and on. And if you're really good, if you've really got a lot of experience using those criteria, the searches can be honed in such a way that, first of all, it'll uncover properties that you wouldn't have normally found. And secondly, you can exclude a bunch of properties that don't interest you. So instead of muddling through all those houses that are listed, and right now it's not as many, but there's still a lot, we can get a really precise search running for people.
Well, it seems that over the last couple of months, as we've gained a lot more listeners on our podcast, especially over the last 6 months, that we're getting bombarded with people calling about, hey, I saw this house, I saw this house, I saw this house, I'm under contract for this house. And, they found it in Zillow, they found it on realtor.com or whatever, something along those lines. And A, they wildly overpaid, and B, the house was not in that good a shape. Now, we've exhausted that topic in a couple of earlier podcasts. I get it. But look at everybody who's calling you or inquiring, about Riley Properties, all have one thing in common. They want to find a good investment deal in Cleveland that they can then rent. And so that's a two-pronged thing. And I still think that going through a realtor like yourself and having the team that we talk about, which is a contractor, is still the way to go, especially in a hot market. In a bad market like 6, 7, 8 years ago, it was like buying stocks last spring on Wall Street. I mean, you could trip over these deals. There were so many. I mean, you could go on a dartboard and throw it at any house in Cleveland Heights, and it would appreciate over 5 or 6 years. But now, when you're in a hot market, those deals are hard to find.
That's
Comment?
right. Oh, you're 100% right, Mike. When we were getting calls from 2008 to 2012, investors would say, I'm looking for cash flowing singles in this area. I'd say, how many do you want? And literally, it was almost like taking over. You could almost take an order. Oh, you want 10? Okay, let me go scout these out for you, and we'll make 30 offers, and you'll get 10 houses. Now it's 10 times harder than that. There's so much less inventory, and the competition is so fierce that it's no longer like that. You're gonna work 10 times as hard to get the same number of houses.
Right. So getting almost the Doppler radar of MLS that can really pinpoint these deals is crucial, and in some cases, maybe even waiting it out. For the market to cool.
Well, and so there's a couple ways to wait it out. Wait for the market to cool. The other thing that just occurred to me, one of the searches I have set up for myself, because I like to monitor the market, and if I see a good deal, I'm not opposed to buying something, just like I know you're not. One of the searches I have set up for myself are houses that have been on the market for so many days or more. And those are sometimes opportunities to come in and like make an offer where someone has been sitting on the market for a long time, and maybe they're just not doing the right things to get their house sold. And if you throw a cash offer in front of them, those are the types of opportunities. Something that's been on the market 3 days, and someone says to me, hey, I want to make a cash offer 30% below list price. It's just not feasible. It's not realistic. They're living back in 2009.
Right. Exactly. Well, I think I call those scratch and dent deals. These are houses that have some structural issue, that maybe the basement's leaking, maybe one of the walls is bowed out. And to a lot of people looking to buy a house, it's scaring them off. And then you compound that by having the seller think he's in LA and put this house up for $300,000 when in reality it's only worth $100,000. So now it's sitting there
Right.
for months. And the market's basically taking a 2x4 to this guy and telling him, you're not getting what you think you're going to get. And that's when your Doppler radar MLS comes in, because your can then swoop in and look for that pile of houses there that are just sitting there, right?
That's absolutely right. Quick story here. I know your listeners love our stories. This is a true story. I bought a house about a year and a half ago. Market was still heating up. It wasn't quite where it is today, but still very much a seller's market. There was a house in a suburb here that I liked for rental properties. It was an estate and it was overpriced. And I had made an offer on it. And they said, well, we got a better offer. We're going to go with it. And this house, it needed some work, but it wasn't terrible, but it was significantly overpriced. They took their offer. About 30 days later, I get a phone call. Hey, that deal fell through. Are you still interested? And because it had been on the market for so long and they weren't getting great advice, I think, from their listing agent, they came back to me and said, we don't want to sit on the market for another 6 months. Will you still be interested at the offer you made? I said, yes. And I bought a house. I got a smoking deal on it.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing people should keep in mind. There are the houses that are sitting on the market forever. And then there is all cash versus finance deals. And let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
You've got people out there who just want to play real estate mogul. And as they say in Texas, what's that expression? All hat, no cattle. I think that's what it is. And they don't have any capital. They don't have any money. And they're going around, they're basically buying these houses, putting them under contract, maybe putting $1,000 down, and it's dependent on financing. And what is the percentage of those deals that fall through?
Well, it's certainly more than the cash deals. And Mike, I know you didn't mention it, but there's another kind of group of people, and I'm sure some of the folks listening to your podcast are wholesalers. So that's probably a whole additional podcast we have to do about wholesaling. And I'm not here to say wholesaling is good or bad, but that's the same kind of thing where people are getting these houses under contract and then they try to resell before they have to.
Right. What I call flip the title, right? Flip the contract.
So there's right, or sometimes they call them floppers instead of flippers. So and it's not illegal. There's certain rules to it, and again, I could go into a whole 60-minute podcast on that. But to your point about the putting down some earnest money, financing a deal, by far the most deals we have that fall through are the ones that are financed through hard money lenders. That's where they're not even approved with a I don't want to say a real bank, but like a regular bank, a traditional bank. Those hard money lenders that are charging higher interest rates and making the riskier loans or with riskier buyers. And then secondly, the traditional type lender buyer who says, okay, we're going to do a 25% down investment property loan. Those fall through. I hate to just quote a percentage off the top of my head, but I just had one fall through this week. So if I had to guess, I'd say 1 in 10, and that's too many. That's a lot. So when sellers have the opportunity to take a cash offer, of course they're going to lean that way. Now on the flip side of that, cash is king, but cash doesn't trump all. If you've got 150 financed and 100 cash, most sellers are going to say, well, heck, it's worth it to roll the dice with this finance buyer because it's a $50,000 difference. But if
exactly.
It's 5,000,
right.
5,000 difference, I'm sorry, the seller's probably going with the cash.
Perspective. You just got a book about running an Airbnb.
Yay.
And your motor is revving. Soon, you're off to Bed Bath & Beyond to buy scented candles and fancy soaps. Okay, stop. Hold on. Before you jump into the pool, make sure A, you can swim, and B, there's water in the pool, especially in the deep end. Airbnb can be a great business, but you have to know what you're doing. You need to know how to swim, which is why our upcoming webinar could be the natural first step. Our 2-hour seminar will cover all the key points of running an Airbnb. More details on the webinar and how to gain access coming soon on our podcast. Just keep listening.
Okay, let's say now you're going head to head. You've put an offer on a house. Do you know what the extent of the counteroffers are coming in as a buyer?
Usually not. And I know a lot of people think they know the quote rules on the negotiation. Really, there are no rules. Okay. The rules are more of what usually happens. Like people say, oh, well, you can't tell people what the other offers are. That's not true. As an agent, you can do whatever. Sorry, did I lose you there for a second?
No, you're good.
You can do whatever the seller instructs you to do as long as you're not breaking any code of ethics. Okay, so as agents, we're not allowed to lie. Like I can't say to you, hey, Mr. Mike, your offer's in, but I've got 10 other offers and they're all higher than
you. You can't be the Rudy Giuliani of realtors.
No. We're as realtors, we are not allowed to lie. What you made the comparison to George Washington. I cannot tell a lie. We're not supposed to blatantly lie. Now,
as opposed to a politician. Okay. Right.
Right. Yeah. So we can certainly negotiate. There have been instances where someone has the highest offer and we'll go to them and say, hey, we've got multiple offers. Let me know if you'd like to bump your offer up. Okay. And they bump their offer up, essentially competing with themselves. Now, when we make that statement to them, we don't know if one of the other buyers might go higher than them, and maybe they don't. But no, you don't. You typically don't know what the other offers are, and you could be raising your offer only to if you could see behind the curtain, find out that gosh, I was already the highest offer, but normally you will never know that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, the house we bought in Forest Hill, our latest acquisition, which I thought was a fair price that we paid, knowing what we have to put in it. That was all cash and fast close. It was, here's the money. It's ready to be deposited in your account. There's no financing, and we will close in 2 weeks. And I'm sure there were maybe some other people, he said, it's going to be X. This is what we want. Okay, we'll pay you X. It's all cash. And we'll close in 2 weeks. And plus, they knew us in the neighborhood because the owners knew who we were and knew that I lived in the neighborhood and that we had, fixed up houses and were good for the neighborhood. I mean,
yep.
I said to myself, that could not be a stronger offer.
Yeah, Mike, I'm so glad you mentioned that because there are a lot of intangibles about an offer. So if you're working with a smart agent or seller on the other side, they'll look at that stuff. It's not just the numbers on paper. So just because an offer has a higher number doesn't mean it's the right offer to take. Another quick story here. We were in multiple offers. The highest offer was, it was $20,000 higher than the next best offer. But the problem was that they had a home sale contingent. And I took the extra
wait
step.
a minute. I think you cut off here. You said home sale contingent, meaning they had to sell their house in order to buy this one.
Exactly. So this buyer needed to sell their house before they could complete the purchase of the property we were selling. And, in a hot market, sellers there's two ways to look at it. They might say, well, everything's selling, so that might not be so bad. The flip side of that is, well, why would I take a home sale contingent offer when I have other buyers willing to make me an offer and don't have a home to sell? Well, the reason in this case that we even thought about it was because it was $25,000 higher or something like that. But I took the extra step and I said, hey, Mrs. Seller, let me look their property up and figure out what they're pricing it at and the likelihood that it will sell. Okay, so I looked it up and I said, hey, look, these numbers just don't make sense. And so the seller made the right choice in the end. In hindsight, I can tell you exactly what happened. They did put their home on the market. We did not take their offer, and that home is still sitting on the market. So had she taken that contingent offer, we'd still be waiting for their home to sell. And who knows, we may have lost those other buyers. So the numbers don't tell all. There's the quality of the buyer, there's the reputation, there's the lender. Is it Dewey Cheatham and Howe Loan Company, or is it a strong lender?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Well, everything's flipped. In a seller market, there are other buyers out there. 10 years ago, it was a buyer's market. And why should I buy this piece of junk house when I can go down the street for the same money and get it fixed up? Right.
That's right.
So
yep.
everything is just flipped on its head, which gets back to what we started talking about, the value. I mean, being an armchair Zillow / realtor.com buyer in another country who's looking at Cleveland, flying around, in Zillow and looking at, what about this? What about this great deal? This looks great, et cetera, et cetera. It's a waste of time. That's just getting you started. You still have to know the neighborhoods. You've got to get we keep talking about it, and it's so true. You've got to get the team in place that's going to inspect the property, that's going to direct you in an area or a group of houses that have more potential, or else you're just wasting your time. So
I agree.
And one other thing, Mike, which is buyer market, seller market. I think people are still, they still think that they could just trip into Cleveland and make money. And we saw that happen with a couple of properties 8-9 years ago. I think our Chadbourne property was like that. We had to buy out this investment group in London who bought this house.
Yeah,
and
good guys.
They lost their shirts on this.
They sure did. Yeah.
And they came in there, they thought, well, we'll buy this house for, $80,000. And they thought, my God, it's a 4-bedroom in Shaker for, I think it was $80,000. And then everything just continued to go sideways. They had the wrong realtor, they had the wrong property manager who got a tenant in there who not only destroyed the property, but who didn't even pay the rent for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then they wake up and they're just scalded. So it's even worse now if you're a buyer. I think it's worse now if you're a buyer in a hot market than a buyer in a bad market. Your thoughts?
Well, certainly in order just to be the winning bidder on these multiple offers, I see buyers sacrificing many of the things that would be normal, like an inspection, like appraisals. I think you're sticking your neck out right now more as a buyer than in any other market. So I agree with that 100%.
Okay, now let's talk about those people that are thinking, boy, if I don't buy now, I'm going to miss this opportunity because there'll be no more houses to buy in Cleveland. I got to jump on this now while the waves are breaking. And that is not a good strategy to invest in Cleveland. There are always deals presenting themselves, combination of deals, estate deals where they're overpriced, they're sitting on the market, and the family is anxious to get their money out. Like you had said, that's one deal. There's other deals where they're in what we've called adjoining neighborhoods that are hot, soon to be neighborhoods that are hot. Forest Hill being one of them. Neighborhoods adjoining the Royal Heights. These are the next neighborhoods that are going to go. And we talked about that earlier in a podcast called micro-targeting, setting. But everybody, don't wet the bed and panic buy without an inspection, without getting your team in place, without paying some money for some consulting. You're jumping into a pool with no water. If you do that.
I'm with you. I mean, I know, and our audience is mainly investors. So we're, as investors, we're in a good spot. We don't need to buy. We want to buy. Those poor folks that are being relocated here to work at the Cleveland Clinic, for example, and have to buy something right now. Well, you make the best of it. You make the best choice you can, and you buy your property, or consider renting for a while.
Renting. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's no, I used to buy cars 30 years ago, do my consumer reports, figure out what the dealer's charging, et cetera, and then negotiate. Now, the last 20 years, I'm leasing a car. It's bumper to bumper coverage for 3 years. So hey, folks, Mike's got to go because you got to do another deal, right, Mike?
Yeah.
So,
got a consultation this evening. It's going to be a lot of fun. Love meeting with people about selling their property.
Good. Well, folks, we're gonna adjourn, and we'll pick this up next week. So go get a mic, and people,
Great.
Don't wet the bed. Don't wet the bed, people. There's plenty of deals out there. Take your time. Don't rush into it. All right?
All right. Take care.
Right. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast with Mike Riley and Mike Ferrante. You can find all our episodes at www.riley-properties.com or on your favorite streaming services like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, SoundCloud, YouTube, and more.